All right, y'all. Thanks for tapping into this episode of Do Your Homework. We are now on debate number 3. This is where things start to get real interesting. Before we get into it, let's talk about the media coverage beforehand. So we talked about the second debate. Nikki Haley gave him that "I feel dumber" jab. Obviously, the press ran with it because she's their favorite candidate, and it was literally her best spot of the debate. When your best spot of the debate is falsely calling somebody stupid, you know you didn't win the debate. But since all the people they're polling are mainly people over 50 who don't actually watch the debates or just kind of pay attention to the news on Twitter or I guess it's X now or Instagram or TikTok or whatever the case may be, who aren't actually really paying attention, they were able to get away with spreading all that bullshit information. And over time, her poll numbers went up. Vivek's actually went down. I don't think that's really the case. We'll see when we get to January 15th. But that's the reason she was able to move center stage. They tried to move him a little bit off stage, and then they used it as like an excuse to give her more questions during the debate. Right, okay. Unfortunately, Dougie B did not qualify for this debate, so he was not there. It's unfortunate he just kind of got crowded out of the race like that, but it is what it is. I hope he continues a career in politics because I do think he's going to be. I think he's going to be something for. He's somebody that we need shortly over the next decade to help lead our country in the right direction because this is a very, very pivotal moment that we are in right now. So let's get into the third debate. Firstly, the first note I made before any questions were asked, and some of you may remember this from my Snapchat, is that Chris Christie and Tim Scott were just there to take up time. Watch the debate. Lo and behold, Tim Scott got the most questions. He actually got the most speaking time, and in that time he still wasn't able to come up with a good enough reason for people to vote for him. And within a week, he had suspended his campaign. So it was completely useless for him to be there. I know I said in an earlier episode that I think that he was just there to make black people look ignorant. I don't think that that was actually like a setup by the GOP. I don't think there's like an invisible hand that's like, oh, we're gonna make this man come out here and make black people look stupid. I don't think that that's actually what they were doing, but that's what he does. That's just, I think he just can't help himself. So whenever he goes out, he just sounds ignorant, and it bothers the shit out of me. But this is the first debate where Vivek just dominated. I mean, he came out throwing haymakers on the stage. Went after Ronna McDaniel, who is Mitt Romney's niece, actually, for her failure as the RNC chairwoman. They lost in 2018, lost in 2020, lost again in 2022, and somehow her salary's gone up since then. And Vivek actually invited her on stage to resign her chair. Said, if you want to come up here and resign, I'll give you my time. I only have like 30 more seconds, but I'll give it all to you if you're going to resign. And then he goes after her for how they chose the debate, because the RNC's in charge of where the debates are and who moderates them, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, it's ridiculous that you even let MSNBC host a Republican debate. You think the DNC would ever let Fox host a debate? No, they would never do that. You're letting a woman who went after Trump for years and made up lies moderate our debate. And then he attacked her. I forget her name. Kirsten. It starts with an M. It's really not important. But he goes after her for saying, look, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, was that real or did you just make that up? Like, was that just disinformation? Are you going to tell us? And then she just sits there dumbfounded, nothing to say. And because there is nothing to say. You lied. You know you lied. And there's nothing to talk about. He continues to go on when he makes his comments about, they were talking about Israel and everybody's talking about, oh, we got to Iran and da-da-da-da-da, we got to do this and we got to do that. And Vivek's like, hold on, we got to be careful about these tripwires because we'll mess around and end up in another conflict. Corrupt politicians in both parties, is where he said, spent trillions, killed millions, and made billions for themselves in pointless wars like Iraq and Afghanistan that did not move the needle for American interests. And he's right about that. And we are inching closer and closer to getting in another issue like that. $7 trillion added to our national debt because of those two conflicts, because people are just willy-nilly involving themselves in wars that we shouldn't be involved in, period. And then it's at the end of that comment where he's like, look, this is a generational divide. You know, do you want somebody from a younger generation who's going to look at things differently, who's going to try to keep us out of war? Or do you want Dick Cheney and 3-inch hills? In which case we have two of them, is the full quote, talking about Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley responds, she just can't help herself. She has to go to war. She loves war. So she's like, I don't wear them unless you can run in them, and they're for ammunition. Ladies, if you can help me out, I don't know what the fuck that means. I've tried to figure it out, and I just can't. I don't know why war is on this woman's mind. Actually, I do know why, and we're gonna get to that here in just a second. This is hilarious. He also made a really good point, in stark contrast to the other two, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, about censorship. He stood his ground on free speech. He stands for it. They're about censorship. We can censor speech here, censor speech there. Vivek rightly points out that we cannot sit here and criticize other people for censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story, or trying to censor parents at school board meetings, et cetera, and then turn around and censor speech when it's convenient for us, right? So you can't criticize censorship on X topic while you prop up censorship for Y topic. You're a hypocrite. You either stand for free speech or you don't. And then he comes out and says, if you really want change, then you have to do it with more speech. You have to go out there through the marketplace idea. You have to inspire people through proper leadership and education. And that is how you affect real change. That is how this system works, with the First Amendment intact. But downstream from that, downstream from censorship, but if we're going to adopt a view of censorship, downstream from that is a very slippery slope. And I think he did a really good job of explaining that. The debates and everything, they'll all be in the description, so you guys will be able to source this stuff and go back and look at it if you need to. But I thought he did a really, really good job of pointing that out. I think he also did a really good job, and I think everybody's come around to his position on this, which was good, that the United States should not be telling Israel what to do. Now, Nikki Haley's like, we need to give them whatever they need, whenever they need it. Israel doesn't need America. America needs Israel. That, I will not subscribe to that. I do not need a tiny Jewish state in the eastern part of the Mediterranean to do anything. Okay? Don't need it. And I'm not going to let you feed me this bullshit lie that I do. Again, they have a right to exist. I'm glad they're there. We can be friends if it's fruitful. The moment that it is not fruitful or convenient, we need to reassess. Okay? My kids are not Israeli. Their moms are not Israeli. I live in America. I pay taxes here. I send my kids to school here. I go to work here. I do my podcasting here. I'm an American. Okay? I'm not a citizen of some global interconnected fabric of Nikki Haley made up bullshit. No, that's not how this works. Stop trying to push this idea down people's throats. That's not how this works. All right. So in contrast from saying we're going to give them whatever they want, Vivek says, I'm not going to pay for your war, but I will let you do whatever you want. You smoke the terrorists on your southern border. I'll smoke the terrorists on my southern border, because you have responsibilities, as do I. And the ability to draw those lines and communicate that assertively but with respect, that's why I think he's way out in front. Way, 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 way out in front. To get into the other candidates a little bit more, this is the first debate where I really saw Ron DeSantis going after Nikki Haley. I think this second debate where she called him out for his policies in fracking in Florida got underneath his skin a little bit. So he went hard. And he went after her, talking about her dealings with the CCP and how she, through government channels, sold them land and gave them incentives and did deals with them to bring companies into South Carolina. Vivek points out that she did deals with Boeing in South Carolina then goes to the UN, quits the UN, and ends up on the board of Boeing, whose back she scratched for years. Ends up on the board of Boeing. She gets stock options with Boeing. She does all these multinational conferences now. She's wrote books now. All kinds of other things she would have never done as a politician. Now, here's the hilarious thing about that, because I went and looked up the fiberglass company and all this other stuff. Did you know? I'm going to read this straight from the source because this is absolutely... Oh, I'm still going. Great. Okay. This right here is just... Guys, you will not believe it. All right, here we go. Boeing states that their 2012 Boeing 787 Dreamliner, 50% of the aircraft are made of fiberglass. 50% of the aircraft are made of fiberglass. Is it any shock to anyone at all that Nikki Haley brought a fiberglass company to South Carolina to help her friends at Boeing? A Chinese one at that. But now you're mad at China. Now you're mad. Now that somebody's told you to be mad at China, you're mad at China. But before, you were like, hey, they're going to make us fiberglass. They're going to sell it to Boeing. I'm going to get some kickbacks. Everything's going to be all right, right? Guys, you can't make this stuff up. This is probably the most corrupt person on the planet right now. I don't know about the most corrupt person on the planet right now, but certainly the most corrupt person in this race by a lot. By a lot. And it's really starting to all come together. It is hilarious. I'm going to throw the links in the description so you guys have all this information. And then he kind of jumped in with Vivek on getting on Nikki Haley for saying China was our, quote, great friend to the U.S. while she was at the UN, which she actually did say. She tries to defend herself on this, going after Vivek, saying that came after we did a deal to take away nuclear weapons from North Korea. You could have never got that deal done. Literally anybody could have got that deal done. Trump got that deal done, basically, because Trump actually went to North Korea and talked to him. He actually went to Asia and spoke to these people. He was the first president ever to go past the demilitarized zone in in Korea and actually go talk to Kim Jong-un. That wasn't you. You didn't do you were just there to take credit for it. You were just there as the rep to sign the piece of paper. You're the signature authority. That's it. You didn't do anything important. So I mean, she could try to, Monday morning quarterback it all she wants, but she didn't really do anything. My biggest takeaway of the entire debate, however, and it's a sentiment I saw from a lot of people who actually watched it, was that Vivek was really the only person on the stage who was not actively condoning actions that could lead to larger conflicts worldwide. It really became abundantly clear to me at this point what this was all about, as far as what the RNC and what the Republican establishment was trying to do. They were trying to reestablish and reinstate the post-World War II neocon status quo. That is what they want. Fight everywhere, all the time, any perceived enemy of the United States, whether it's Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. Pick one, find them, fight them. That's just that military-industrial complex chugging away. And they will do anything they have to protect it. The major example of this is Nikki Haley talking about needing to punch them one and punch them hard when talking about Iran. And, Ron DeSantis talking about the troops being over in Syria and Iraq that are being hit by these Iranian-backed militia groups. And neither one of them ever touched the underlying issue at play, which is why the fuck are we over there in the first place? Why? Why are you even in a position to be shot at? Okay, let's say I go to the south side of Chicago, right? And I get blasted at and robbed. All right, and then I call my dad and I say, "Hey, Dad, I got blasted at and robbed in the south side of Chicago." The first thing he's going to say to me is, "Why the fuck are you in the south side of Chicago?" And it's a great question. Why are you there? Why put yourself in that position? That's not wise. Neither one of them will touch that. Why won't they touch that? because their donors won't let them. How dare you speak out against that? For those of you that are paying attention to my stuff on Snapchat, one, I appreciate it. Two, I posted a video of Rand Paul. He's bringing a debate to the floor and a vote soon to actually try to get those men and women out of there because they shouldn't be there. As him and Vivek have said, these are just accidental tripwires to get you into a larger conflict, which, again, Nikki Haley won't talk about. She won't talk about bringing them home. She'll talk about punching Iran and leaving them there. Yeah, we'll just leave them there. It's like, okay, and if they get shot out again, oh, then we'll shoot at them again. So it's like you're just waiting for a problem to happen. It's bullshit. And why is she doing that? She has a special interest too. It's that simple. She has a captured interest too. And I don't think Ron DeSantis does, but I think his donors do. And they say, we're not going to give you money if you speak on this. And so he just doesn't say anything. So that's unfortunate. But fortunately for the people, we the people who wrote the Constitution, who created the states that created this union, we do finally have a voice out there, and it is in the form of Vivek Ramaswamy, who's actually able to speak up on these issues and say, look, if you, individual, hit us, we will hit you, not some, oh, they backed you, so we hit them, because by that same logic, we are technically at war with the Russians. We fund the Ukraine, right? The Ukraine wouldn't be fighting right now if we weren't funding them. So by that logic, Russia should be shooting missiles at us. Neither one of them will say that because that's foolhardy logic. But it helps perpetuate their forever wars, so they'll say it. Thankfully, Vivek's called them out on that. He continues to do it. He will do it again in the fourth debate, so stay tuned. I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment. Again, thank you all for tapping in to this episode of Do Your Homework. Stay tuned. We got more coming.